Well, on behalf of Chambers San Mateo County and our Progress Seminar co-chairs, Assembly Member Speaker Pro Tem Kevin Mullen, San Mateo County Supervisor Carol Groom, Roseanne Faust, CEO of SAMCETA, and Julie Lynn, San Mateo Labor Council, welcome and good morning to the 52nd Annual Progress Seminar, virtual program series. As you all know, the past 18 months have been about leading by example, prioritizing public health, often knowing how difficult the impacts will be, and ensuing the safety of San Mateo County. The Progress Seminar has always been about demonstrating how to lead, how to tackle complex problems and policy issues, and forming relationships that last between each conference. Our priority has always been your safety and well-being, which is why we thank you for being so supportive of turning this year's Progress Seminar format virtual again. We truly appreciate our commitment and participation to this year's program. Having all of you here together with your thoughts and ideas and the willingness to listen to each other is what makes our Progress Seminar so special. The success of the Progress Seminar is not possible without the generous support of our major program sponsors, including today's opening general session sponsor, Kaiser Permanente, our principal sponsors, Facebook, Callagy San Mateo County, and Comcast. I now would like to introduce my dear friend, Lenny Gutierrez from Comcast for a brief message and a video.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lenny Gutierrez with Comcast, and I am joined by my colleague, Dylan Aoyang. Together, we are part of the Comcast Government Affairs team representing the great county of San Mateo. Comcast has been a proud sponsor of the Progress Seminar for more years than I can remember. There is no question this event and the work of Chambers San Mateo County is something Comcast proudly supports year in and year out. And while we pass another year without being together in person, the work we all do individually and collectively is what makes San Mateo County so strong. Dylan and I are proud to share this video with everyone this morning. And while it has a national feel to it, we chose this video to pay tribute to San Mateo County's efforts to connect everyone in the most challenging weeks and months beginning last March. Comcast was humbled to support the work of leaders like Board of Supervisors, County Manager Mike Callagy and his team, Mike Wentworth, Anne-Marie Despain, Superintendent Nancy Magee, and the Office of Education, and all the school district superintendents, trustees, teachers, staff, students, and families, and other elected officials and agency staff that provided under unimaginable circumstances to keep people connected. We hope you enjoy this short video, and we will see you in April 2022. Thank you.
Want to help kids get their homework done? Well, an internet connection is a good start. But kids also need computers. And sometimes the hardest thing about homework is finding a place to do it. So why not hook community centers up with Wi-Fi for kids like us and all the amazing things we're going to learn?
Over the next 10 years, Comcast is committing $1 billion to reach 50 million low-income Americans with the tools and resources they need to be ready for anything.
I hope you're ready, because we are.
Thank you, Lenny's, for all your support. It is now my honor to introduce co-chair Julie Lynn, as she will be introducing welcoming our local mayors and vice mayors who have joined us today. Julie?
Thanks, Amy. Good morning, everyone. And it's an honor to be here with you today and very excited to be part of my first Progress Seminar as a co-chair. So this morning we have with us the following mayors and vice mayors. From Belmont, Mayor Charles Stone and Vice Mayor Julia Mates. From Daly City, Mayor Jesslyn Manalo and Vice Mayor Roderick Daus Magwal. From Millbrae, Mayor Ann Schneider. From Pacifica, Mayor Sue Beckmeyer and Mayor Pro Tem Mary Beer. From Redwood City, Mayor Diane Howard and Vice Mayor Giselle Hale, and my 4-year-old in the background, very excited about all of you being here as well. So that's my hype crew. You're welcome. My husband would also like to participate, but please stop participating so I can finish my list. Thank you. All right, back to our regularly scheduled programming. From San Carlos, Mayor Laura Palmer Lohan. From San Mateo, Mayor Eric Rodriguez. From South San Francisco, Mayor Mark Adiego and Vice Mayor Mark Nogales. And with that, I would like to turn it over to my co-chair extraordinaire, Roseanne Faust.
Julie, I love hearing Cassidy, and I bet you everyone on the line does, because you know what? Cassidy is our future. So thank you for sharing her with all of us.
Our future is running around with no clothes on. So hopefully our future makes a few slight modifications.
Oh, I'm just going to keep laughing because, folks, it is great to have all of you here this morning. We are so excited. I cannot thank Amy, Felicia, and Maggie enough. They really just pull it all together and make this work for our county. We are so very fortunate for Chamber of San Mateo County. So yes, we are virtual. We are in a webinar now, but we look forward to seeing all of you in person next April. I have the pleasure of moderating this next panel. And let me tell you, folks, they have great bios in the material that were sent out, but I want to talk to you about them from a personal perspective. These three individuals are actually why we're all here, healthy, and moving forward in San Mateo County. When you use the word leader for different organizations and different groups and different constituencies mean different things. But Mike, Nancy, and Srija, if I'm going to follow anybody anywhere into anything, I will follow these three. Mike Callagy, our county manager, Nancy Magee, our superintendent of schools for the County Office of Education, and Srija Srinivasan, our deputy chief of San Mateo County Health. These folks, these individuals, these people, and frankly, I consider them friends. They led with competence, with compassion, with humility, with grace, with kindness, with facts, and with their heart. They were here for every single, I'm looking through the list of attendees, and so many folks wouldn't be able to do what they do without these three leaders. And we are very, very fortunate to have them in San Mateo County. I would be hard pressed to find another county out of the 58 that have three individuals like Mike, Nancy, and Srija. And I am so incredibly grateful. And I speak not on behalf of just me, but on behalf of Chamber San Mateo County, on behalf of SAMCETA, on behalf of the Central Labor Council, on behalf of all of our communities. So they're all looking down because they're so humble. They need to hear this though, folks. So give them a virtual round of applause. Do whatever you need to do so they're smiling. So we're gonna get into the panel, and I know Srija is coming on right at 9 a.m. So I'm gonna let Mike and Nancy just make a few opening comments. And I wanna wait till Srija comes on, because the first question I'm asking is not a question that we sent to any of you. You know me well enough to know I believe you can answer what I'm gonna ask. So let's start. Nancy, why don't you start and welcome and say a few opening remarks?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Roseanne. I don't think I've been as uncomfortable for an entire minute as that last minute of introduction. It's really humbling. And I can get emotional if I think about it too much. So I'm just going to keep on going here. Happy Friday. I'm really thrilled to be here. It's such an honor to be in my position. I started as a high school English teacher when I was 23 years old. Spent 20 years in the classroom every day with students. Loved every single second of it. Never imagining that I would be in the role that I'm in or have the responsibilities. But I do think that it was those 20 years in the classroom where I deeply engaged with every student that came in the door. and appreciated them for their beauty and their gifts that they brought forward. That they're the ones who schooled me up. That's where my doctorate lies, is in students. And so when I lead now in my position, it's the voice of students who are coming out through my heart and my mind. I can't pass off to Mike and good morning, Srija, without just thanking each of you for your support, leadership, and friendship. I do want to say to Amy, I know that it was a big, courageous decision to make the Progress Seminar virtual this year. Srija and I already had our cocktail appointment, and it was going to be called Crisis and Leadership Cocktail, and it was a really big mix of things that we were going to sit and sip on. So next year, April. Mike.
Thanks, Nancy. And let me start with what an honor it is to be here with Nancy and Srija, who I just have the utmost respect, both professionally and personally for. And Roseanne, thank you for that great introduction. But as you know, there's nothing that has been done in my office here without the great support of all our partners and everyone in this office, and certainly with your incredible support, Roseanne and Sam Sita and Don and everything. I mean, when this crisis struck, one of the very first people we went to was you for help, and you were there, and you did such an incredible job for us throughout this. This has truly been a incredible collaboration through the most epic crisis that we'll ever face in our lifetime, hopefully. And because of that collaboration, we've been able to manage it together. And this is truly something that has been done together. I got to tell you, I love the Progress Seminar, and Amy, I support your decision 100% to do this virtually. We are getting there, folks. We're not quite there right now, but we will get there very soon. And it's because everyone in this county has been rowing in the same direction. And it has been something that we will reflect upon in the future that will make us stronger, having gone through this together. And I got to say, for me, having started out in the law enforcement side of things, it's really been about developing relationships. And I feel so lucky, so very lucky to have the relationships around the county that we do here in this office, to be able to call upon people and ask them to do things that they were never built to do, that they were never trained to do, but they step up. They step up every time you ask them, and they contribute in an incredible, incredible way. And that's why I feel so fortunate to be in this role through this crisis and beyond, because we are going to do great things in this county, having gone through this together. Thank you. And let me now turn it over to Srija.
Good morning, everyone. It is truly a privilege to serve this community with all of you. And I'm super grateful to Amy, to Roseanne, to all of you for making time to have a little time to reflect together as well. I guess what I would offer as an opening is just that, as incredibly grueling and challenging as these last 20 months have been, I could not imagine doing it in a community that was more supportive than what we have together in San Mateo County. I had maybe more drills and practice sessions for the pandemic that might be, but nothing compares to the reality, and being able to lean on so many as trusted colleagues, being able to find ways to support each other and buoy each other's spirits, and being able to find the humanity that, we really care about, like what makes this San Mateo County community great and worth really fighting for with all our might. It's really an honor. And I feel like I've learned from each person who came to the situation with empathy and care for the people we're all responsible for. So looking forward to this conversation. And it's nice to be in a place that's different than a year ago, even if it's not where we want to be quite yet, all the way to where I know we will be together.
Thank you all so much, Mike, Nancy, Srija. I have a few questions for you. The first one is not on the prepared list. So it'll be who wants to answer it. And then we're going to ask all of our attendees to put any questions that they have into the Q&A function. If you could put the questions into the Q&A function, it'll be easier for us to monitor it virtually. But the first question is, what I'd like you all to do, the three of you, is transport yourself back. Think about where you were in February of 2020. Envision yourself in February of 2020. What advice would you give to yourself, your team, your family, and your community that you know now after 19 months that you wished you had either known or could have envisioned, or take it in whatever direction you want? But look back on where you were at February of 2020, what you were doing, what you were involved with, and what advice could you give the different, I would say, facets of your life? And what advice would you have given yourself at that time, knowing what you know now, 19 months later?
Look, I'm happy to jump in and start. And, it has been such an incredible learning experience. And for me, it really would have been about preparation in areas that we could never imagined. I go back to the PPE that we fought for on a not only a nationwide basis, but a worldwide basis, and to a level that we couldn't have ever imagined. And this was kind of the furthest thing from my mind at that time. Once COVID hit, we had this unbelievable need to protect our people. And it was such a feeling of helplessness, knowing that we had our courageous frontline workers, our nurses, our doctors, our first responders on the line facing this incredible disease, this crisis, and we weren't able to get them the basics and secure that inventory of basics, of gloves, of masks, of gowns that were needed immediately. And that we were fighting with the rest of the world. And it was just such a feeling of defeat once we put in an order and it would be canceled. We'd be outbid by someone else in a different country. So not only were we competing with the Bay Area, but California, the United States, but the entire world. And it was such a feeling of desperation. And I guess what I gathered from that is look for the unconventional needs of a county, of a society. Sometimes we don't know what we don't know, but we've got an obligation to kind of think beyond where we're at right now in our comfort levels. And and that's only, not only professionally, but personally, we have to think beyond that and think about the needs of your family also. That was really an eye-opening experience for me, and something that I vowed to never be caught short on again.
Thank you, Mike. Really, to remember back, we don't even think about PPE anymore. And so going back there, this is that reflective moment. So thank you.
We've got enough PPE now to last a couple lifetimes. So we're
let's
good.
Hope we don't need it.
Yeah, let's hope we never need it, but we've got it.
So a couple things that were going through my brain as the memory teletransporter was taking us back. Honestly, I do think February was around the time that it dawned on me how significant these various dot connections were happening, because it was around January that the public health people and the epidemiologists were hearing about Wuhan and trying to get their brain around what do we know, what don't we know. So to your really thoughtful question, Roseanne, number one, I, at that point in February, thought that we could gather information and that information would reduce uncertainty and that like we would have more clarity to help guide us. And I think it was in the month of February that it became pretty clear because we didn't even have tests. We didn't even know who was COVID positive. There was so much uncertainty. And this was the most significant experience I've had where you just don't know. I mean, and you're just making judgment calls based on what you do know and committing to learning as quickly as possible so that we can make a better decision the next day, the next week, the next month. So I wish I would have had more mental, kindness and preparation for all that we didn't know and the level of uncertainty with which we had to work so that I could give myself, my family, our team, like, you know what, we're not going to know, and we're going to do the best we can based on what we know. And we're going to take care of each other and keep moving on. I got better at that. Nancy helped me get better at that. Mike helped me get better at that. Many of you helped us get better at that. But that level of uncertainty was really, really unnerving. And then the second thing, thinking back to February, I don't think we had clarity of how long this could possibly last. So the stamina factor of at the beginning of some large challenge, what can we do to take care of ourselves, physical stamina, and have more resiliency of people enlisted, to be ready and to take on some things, even if it just meant for a little while, to have even more people kind of in the thinking, planning support group at the beginning. We got better at that too in that month of February, but I also wish I would have thanked my husband more quickly for taking over all household responsibilities and been nicer as a spouse.
Thank you, Srija. That just made it very real because just the kindness, the stamina, the like that mental kindness, that phrase you use, that is going to stick with me. So, and I think with our audience. So thank you. Nancy, I'm going to turn it to you.
Yeah, so I have some very stark memories, a couple things that really stick out. One was in February, all the superintendents gathered to meet with Dr. Morrow, and he was going to help talk us through what to anticipate. And I could sense that there was a sort of an urgency and a heaviness, and yet we weren't able to name it yet. And so what Dr. Morrow talked to us about was really this idea of calmness in crisis and the way in which you might be dealing with your communities where emotions are elevated and people are upset. And so being aware of that and trying to express a bringing it down, a de-escalation, but that was completely out of context. Like we weren't in it yet. And I'm thinking, why are we talking about this? Like this, shouldn't we be talking about what this thing is over, in these other countries? So that became my mantra for the next 4 months was this idea of mirror neurons and how we have to be aware of our nervous systems and how as leaders we're engaging with our communities and trying to help people bring the temperature down. Another really stark memory was just right after that happened, Dr. Morrow started sharing with us cases that we were getting in schools from students. So it got really real fast. And we spent an entire weekend, that last weekend of February, at the County Office of Ed. I think I went home to sleep, but from Friday to Sunday night, we were there in the office, working with superintendents and working on communication and helping everybody craft, how are we going to support communities when we don't really know what this is. And that was also leading right up until that moment when on March 6th, Dr. Morrow signed the order for schools to go to distance learning. And I've been in other emergencies where you feel sort of that physical shock in your body. And I think on that day was the day like I was a little bit in shock, like, wow, this is really happening. And I think what I come away from is a couple things. One is that I felt so responsible for everyone in my own organization and their well-being. They were going to be teaching kids from their living rooms. They had no equipment. Kids and family, everybody felt like we got sort of blown apart with no lifelines between each other. There was this moment of like, we're all in our little spaces and I don't know how to reach out and connect to people. So if I was going to give myself advice at that point, and I think I've followed my advice ever since, is just you have to start every single day with a couple of thoughts. One is like how grateful I am for everyone in my life that brings me support and love and a connection. Just expressing that gratitude every day for the reality of what I have today, because tomorrow is it's unexpected. We don't know what's going to happen. It's not something we can count on. And the second thing is that the smallest thing matters. Just calling someone on the phone, or we had, started doing Zoom calls with all 400 of our employees, thinking, how is this really going to work? But we did them once a week and people just flocked to them like nobody's business. And those small things, just saying, hey, it's your birthday, happy birthday, really, really matter. Just the being human in tough times.
Thank you, Nancy. I think the gratitude, the little things, the appreciation, I'd like to hope we all come out of this, or have come out of it to some extent, with pieces of everything each of you have said. Srija, I'm going to turn it over to you. And in dealing day in and day out with all health related, everything. I mean, I know how many times I went to you with questions, with just, do you have information? What are some of the areas that you felt more disappointed at the responses you were getting or the challenges you were facing? And how did you get through it? How did you travel through these disappointments and challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo what Nancy just said of like finding a way to stay grateful for what we could do and were able to do was super important. I think the things that were really disappointing or challenging or frustrating, to be totally honest, was just like there's so much scrutiny and so much responsibility and so much pressure. And we have that responsibility and pressure intrinsically as public health professionals. No one goes into the field of public health without a supreme desire to serve and do the very best we can for the population as a whole. There were many, many more people who quickly became public health experts, and understandable, right? Like, we're scared. We were absorbing information. This is a very educated community. This is a very connected community, connected to the world. And there just wasn't time to give quality thought to lots of things because there were so many things coming at us so quickly. So it was disappointing to not feel like I could be a very good boss, to be frank, that to buffer the folks on the front line from some of what was just a lot of questioning and a lot of like, do you all really know what you're doing, in a way that as a boss and as a support for those who are giving so selflessly and not getting any weekends and not getting very much sleep. That was a hard personal disappointment to get over for a while. Like, oh my gosh, like this is, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm doing a very good job. I don't know how to do this in a way that preserves our assets so that we can be good for all the people we serve. So that was really hard. And then I think another aspect that was disappointing and it was challenged me as to what could I bring and what could our team bring. The disproportionality of how COVID was hitting from its very earliest moments for residents in nursing homes and for those who we were all counting on, our essential workers and folks working on the front line who didn't have the ability to protect themselves as much. It's baked in so many ways that we are all much more aware of and could see more clearly, but there wasn't a way to thwart it very quickly. That's long haul stuff, and like how to keep the long haul stuff in perspective as we still do the very best we could with the information we have to save as many lives as possible. Those two things being said, and like in trying to not shy away from the responsibility that continues to weigh on me as a leader and us as a community, I don't think we could have learned this lesson as clearly without something as difficult as what we've gone through and we're getting through. So I still have hope from it all that these searing lessons are ones our community is up for reckoning with and working through. Yeah, I think I'll stop there.
Srija, I really, and we all appreciate your reflective nature. The fact that you're willing to open yourself up and say, was I doing, here you have frontline people. Am I supporting them in the way I can? And the questioning, but you kept at it day in and day out. So, and I think that hope, that's something we all need to remember. I'm going to turn it over to Mike, and same question, just rephrase, not from so much a health perspective, but an overarching. You have 760,000 residents. You have 20 cities. You have county unincorporated land. You're responsible for everyone from birth to the beyond. So what were things that disappointed, that surprised you, and how did you maneuver? Well, Mike, you're on mute.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Roseanne. I was reflecting upon what Srija was saying, and for me, it was this personal feeling of guilt for every person that died in this county. I felt like we were, as a county, in a race against time. And the time that we're up against had deadly consequences. And there was this tremendous push of staff and every resource that we could gather that we pushed to the breaking point, quite frankly. And there's guilt associated with that also, knowing that we are putting people in harm's way, trying to save lives, but that every life had an impact on families, and that it broke my heart that people were dying alone in hospitals, with the exception of our incredible nurses and doctors who were there as surrogate family members in their last moments of life. And way, way, way too many people died prematurely. And every one of those, I took personally. And it was so difficult every week to report out on that to some, we were doing it daily for a while. And then, we did it weekly to the elected officials and city managers, everyone else. That was so hard. And then listening on a daily basis to the phone calls and emails from individuals who were losing their businesses and who had felt like they died, who had lost everything. And you wonder about the decisions you make and what we could have done differently and how this will be looked upon in the future, and the real impacts that every decision that we made, collectively, were, what that was having, the impact that was having on the lives of individuals. It was just tremendous at times and overwhelming at times. And, you look back and we hope that, we we had positive impacts, but those are always lost in the trauma of the moment. And I'd say that was the most difficult part, and still remains the most difficult part of everything we do associated with this crisis. So, we all I can say in the end is we tried our very best with a disease where there is no roadmap, there is no guidebook, there is no way to know if you're doing what you're doing is right in the moment. But we put our best collective thoughts together and took a step forward. And I think that was, no matter what happened, we knew we were moving forward every single day.
Thank you, Mike. When you use the word guilt, that's powerful. And the fact that you got on those calls every day and delivered that information and delivered it just honestly, straightforward. So thank you for sharing that. Nancy, I'm going to turn it over to you because being a mother, to be honest with you, I was very grateful that my children were older, that they didn't face the challenges as deeply as other parents and caregivers had to feel during this. And you, leading as the superintendent of schools, what did you see with disappointment and how did you work through it?
Well, I want to start again just with gratitude, certainly to Mike and Srija for the foundational support provided, because we would not have been successful without that. Mike, your weekly calls were an anchor for me personally. It felt like a safe space to go. And so I just thank you for all that time and energy that you provided for us. In the school setting, we typically think of like Pleasantville when we think of a school community, like beautiful little children coming to school and their families are so proud and the teachers support them. And, kids are teaching, are learning and in discovering and making friends. And it has this like warmth to it. And what was disappointing was that the school became sort of the battleground for the ways in which people were being ripped away from their anchors. And the school, because the school is an anchor of a community, that's where people knew where they could come and be and say what they needed to say. And I'm so proud of all of our superintendents and our school board members and our community members who were out in the in the deep throes of the pandemic without knowing a lot of information, but providing food to our families and our students, getting devices out to kids, trying to make sure that physically calling families, like, we just want to know that you're there and you're okay. So all of that was going on in this amazing, like, essential life-saving service. And then I go back to Dr. Morrow's comment about, the mirror neurons and the dysregulation of our emotions when we lose our routines and the things that ground us in life. And that's when everyone is spinning around in the universe. And that all came to the school board meetings. Srija talked about, the dysregulation of the community all hit the sort of the front line. And school board meetings became the battleground for everybody's positions. And I honestly, it was disheartening to see that so much energy was being spent trying to take positions and argue against each other, as opposed to spending energy. What do we need to support the children? Like, our essential driving question should be, how are the children? And what do we need to do to support them? Arguing from our different positions and political beliefs and energies and personal experiences wasn't really going to help the children as much. So that was a real challenge, I'd have to say, and continues to be.
So Nancy, again, thank you for sharing that, because you just started with how I want to introduce the next question. So continues to be a challenge. What message would you like to give the audience about, okay, we're facing challenges, there are things that we shouldn't forget. Where do we go? Like, what do you want them to know? And how do you want all of our attendees to communicate this to their constituencies? Take your time.
I'll go ahead and say that we learned so much, and I don't think that we uncovered things that we didn't unconsciously already know were there. Like, we knew that there are inequities in our system and systemic barriers to success. And I think Srija made the point that, what we learned from such a critical crisis that we're actually still in the middle of. That's one thing that I would say to everybody is, remember, in emergencies, I've said this before, like, there's 4 phases, and like the third phase is you're responding to the emergency. And the 4th phase is like recovering from it. We're not even genuinely in recovery yet. And so we have to be kind and gentle and patient with each other, while also acknowledging the urgency to repair and tear down those barriers in the system that stop all of our residents and our students from accessing what they need right now. And what we did in the general sense in the pandemic was come together for the benefit of the whole. We really had to lean in and give up what might be comfortable for ourselves individually, like wearing masks everywhere, for the benefit of everybody. And I think that's the way, like, I challenge San Mateo County right now to really act on what we've learned around social inequities and barriers, because it means we have to give up a little bit of what we all enjoy so that everyone can have dignity, their humanity, the basic services and basic needs that each of us deserve as human beings on this planet. And I think we'll become a much more, I want us to become that compassionate community, but with action, not just with words.
Love it. That's going to be a quote out of today. Action, not words. Srija, I'm going to turn kind of same question over to you, and then Mike, for that flavor about what would you say to people right now? And it really mirrors a question in the chat about pieces of advice.
Yeah, I really resonate with how Nancy framed kind of the collective reflection of knowing what we know and still in it. So a couple things I would say are our weaknesses or our strengths have been magnified when we haven't been able to have a holistic picture. So I think that pre-pandemic, the way we relied on each other was less visible. So the obligation on us as we work to get through this is to not let those weaknesses get bigger, and actually to help them get smaller in the places where people are protected the least. And that is the action, not words part for me, is when we say that we have a community in which everybody is protected from the worst, we saw that wasn't true. And what things can we plant now that make it much less likely for the conditions in which people live, the conditions in which people work, and the conditions in which people learn are safe and respectful and propel the absolute best, for every kid who's in the school system that Nancy is guiding. What can we be doing to plant the seeds that are different so that everyone could expect better protection? And then on the personal, as leaders and colleagues and partners, how do we listen for what we don't know so that we can keep working, on things that are that could help us get better? There are a lot of things we didn't know. I think this crisis has taught me to really recognize a lot of things that we didn't know that we could learn from. I don't think it's very coherent, but those are the two things that are going through my brain.
Actually, Srija, it's incredibly coherent. I mean, I just made a bunch of notes, and the fact that you publicly acknowledge those that we need to pay attention to, that protected from the worst that could happen. And it wasn't true. We weren't all doing our jobs, our responsibility. I mean, it's like small businesses that I just didn't know were on the edge. I mean, it reminded, thank you for being vulnerable and reminding us that we really need to look at what's not visible. And Mike, I'm going to pass it over to you. And you're already working on things, and especially with the homelessness, the big summit convening. And so I want to ask you, what did you see, and where do we need to go? And you have a lot of civic leaders on this call. And how do we get other folks engaged in the good work ahead?
Yeah, and thanks for this question, because this is so important. Because we have gone through the eye of a crisis, and we are going to come out stronger because of it. This county pulled together in an unbelievable way. You look at the 5 people I work for, the Board of Supervisors, they didn't shy away from their responsibility for 1 second. All the elected officials in this county, the way that they came together was just absolutely incredible. The way that we interacted with the school system, and Nancy, her leadership throughout this, on things that we couldn't even imagine. And remember, this was just not one crisis. This was crisis within a crisis within a crisis, when we had our civil unrest in the middle of this, when we had the worst forest fire and the CZU fires in the middle of this, and how we all had to pivot and go in different directions and do things that we never imagined, in roles that we could never fathom that we would be in, and things that we learned along the way. It has put us light years ahead in the way we view homelessness, the digital divide, health, equity, all the things that were on our radar to a lesser extent have moved us in a direction now that will never deter us from overcoming these things. And we're stronger because of this as a county. We are better better equipped to deal with these because of what we have gone through. And I'm excited about the future. I see endless possibilities, knowing that we got through this together, and we are getting through it. We're not through it yet, but we're getting through it. And I got to believe that we're on the downhill side of this now. We can take this energy. We can take this collaborative feeling that we have in this county. And let me tell you, talking to my colleagues, this is very unique. No one went their own way. We all stuck together and collaborated, and we can overcome anything that we encounter in this county, in society. And I'm talking about those systemic problems of inequality, of homelessness, of healthcare concerns, of the digital divide. All those things that were somewhat systemic are now within our reach of solving. And this is why everyone on this call should be excited, because we will, as we come out of this, really focus our attention in those areas, and we will solve these problems in this county. We will be stronger than we have ever been having gone through this. We'll look at small businesses in a different way, and we'll never let them fail like they did in this pandemic. We will bolster them. We will support them. We will promote them. And that'll be the same for a lot of things that have been constant problems, recidivism, everything that we look at, we're going to look at differently because of this.
Thank you all so much. And I've been monitoring the comments in the chat, and there is so much appreciation for the honesty, for the vulnerability, for the deep openness that you are all imparting with the attendees. So please know that. We have some questions in the chat. I addressed one, and then there's a second one, and it has to do with transitioning back to work. And let me add something to it, because work as we know it, 5 days in the office, doesn't appear in our future. But yet, for a good majority of folks who are working, because of the nature of their jobs and their responsibilities, their work either changed in a different way, or so I'd love you all to comment on kind of the future of work, the future of how we all do our jobs, and what you see. It impacts transportation, it impacts office space, it impacts people living long distances, it just impacts all of us. So who would like to start with that question?
All right, I'd love to, because this is one of those areas, again, that there is no going back. And quite frankly, before the pandemic, we were looking at this as a county. How do we keep our employees in this county when they're looking at commutes of in excess of 2 hours each way every day? We were looking at putting satellite offices in the East Bay for employees that live across the bridge. This has allowed us, and literally when the pandemic hit, we flipped a switch, and overnight, 85% of our employees were working remotely. And there was this big question, well, how are we going to do this? And how are we going to serve the public? And we have found a way. This has forced us to find a way using the technology that is out there and interacting in a different way. I mean, who would have thought that we would have been in this virtual world, 20 months ago, that we now take for granted? We know that there's a different way to do business, a better way to do business, a way that impacts our environment, a way that impacts the lives of our employees. And I was always concerned about that family unit when they're commuting that hour or 2 hours each way to work. Who does that mostly impact? It impacts their family, the quality time that they would have normally with their kids or their loved ones, coaching, being part of the PTA, volunteering in the community. There was no longer time for that. We are giving them that time back in this hybrid. And quite frankly, Roseanne, this hybrid will be with us, I believe, forever. And obviously not every position will allow for that, but the vast majority of the positions in the county will allow for some hybrid into the future. We're already doing that. We're already planning for that. We're putting the pieces in place to sustain that. But the bottom line is, we want to use this in a way that better serves our customers. We're not asking the customers to get used to some lesser form of service. We're going to find better ways through technology and interactions to better serve those who use the county services.
Thank you, Mike. I think that message is very important to continue sharing. The fact that we can do it. It doesn't have to be what it was. It can be new and better. And I'm going to turn to Srija and then Nancy from your perspectives, health and education. And to be honest with you, all of you have a perspective on all of these issues. So however you'd like to weave your answers in, this is open, folks. You guys are great. So keep sharing. I'm just going to keep guiding, and folks, put Q&As, any questions you have, into the Q&A section, and we'll keep going through them. There's already another question I want to ask that isn't on your list. What else is new? But here we go. So Srija and Nancy.
Well, it has been heartening also to see the higher value we can bring to clients of health services in a remote, teledelivery way. We have some behavioral health clients able to engage in treatment because they don't have to navigate the transportation and other supports, that were super challenging. So that it's really, we're learning a lot by this hybrid model. And as Mike said, in leading, our county culture to embrace what, what we had to do in a way that can deliver better, higher value services. The only other thing I would say is, it's also true that human connection and how we, build those bonds, welcome new people into our organization, strengthen our teams. Learning from educators, they were super flexible and, setting the pace for school reopening this past fall, and like the excitement that was brought to getting to elbow your, fellow classmate or colleague. So we are looking for how do we do that? And frankly, some of the ways we've learned to be better communicators for all the people who are counting on us also help us, communicate internally, the consistent, frequent, shorter, staying in touch, checking in digitally. I think it'll be helpful to understand from the small business community and others in the business sector how that interdependency is going to work, because the feet on the ground to keep our ecosystem economically sound and strong, there's a lot of ripple effects, and want to keep learning from you, Roseanne, and all the business community, and how to keep that ecosystem strong.
And so should I just head in?
Yes, thank you. I was so excited. I clicked my screen off and I was trying to find y'all again. I was thanking Srija. There we go. So got so excited there, shouldn't touch anything.
So I'll take a little bit of a different angle on it, because in the education realm, we know that it's essential for the healthy development of children to engage with each other. So their social interaction and being in person is really at the heart of their growth and success. And yet, one of the things that was really challenging in what we've just been through is that overnight moving school from the schoolhouse to the living room was, I think, pretty unimaginable. I don't think in my, in my wildest dreams, I would have predicted that would ever happen in my lifetime. And what we moved to overnight was basically emergency education. And we were doing the best we could. And it didn't look so great. And it didn't actually work so well. But we then stayed in distance learning for more than a year. And we got better really, really fast. And by the time we ended that school year of 2021, that last June, our teachers and principals and families had really adapted to making the best they could. And I saw many students were able to use the tools and being remote and doing, going out physically and working in a job, and also being in school, and also taking care of their family members and being connected. There was a lot of good in that. And a lot of kids were able to accelerate in their programs. But I think what also surfaced was the ways in which we are relying in this country on our schools to care for our children from 8 in the morning or 7:30 in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon as a substitute for childcare, because we don't have another system. Like, if kids aren't in school, then how do our adults function in their daily lives? Because we don't have other options for how kids are engaged. And I think that's a super giant opportunity to fold in all of our community and our expanded learning partners about how do we engage with our students outside of the school walls, and how do we navigate inside the school day. So there's so much opportunity for innovation and education and developing our youth in the future. So I'm really excited about that. And as far as remote work goes, I hope that we can find that best sweet spot in the middle where kids can innovate. There's a lot of things they can do remotely, and you can actually, like, let me just give an example of middle. So we have these small elementary school districts where they often have one middle school. So Belmont has one middle school, San Carlos has one middle school, Millbrae has one middle school. And so you take that one middle school, if you could offer a virtual class in Italian or French or some foreign language that we might not be able to fund a teacher for on every one of those middle schools, those kids could all accelerate their learning and have access to something that might really change their lives. And so we have to be able to lean into that innovative space and think about how we do that for education. But essentially, the elbow bumping and the joy of kids coming back in person is irreplaceable and essential for our kids.
Thank you, Nancy and Mike and Srija. I think that really gives this group an opportunity to think about how we view education when you said innovative. And I think that's birth. I think it's our childcare centers, our family centers, our childcare, First Five and all that they do. And then you look at them through 18, 19, 20. Some of us on the call were on a community college district presentation where their growth occurred, 76% growth occurred from 18 and 19-year-olds. They had declines in other age groups, but they occurred. And so we need to value, other countries value their teachers like they do doctors and lawyers and other professionals in those realms. And I think we have to think about it. Srija touched on mental health. I hope everyone will stay on for the next session because it is about mental health and kind of protecting it and thinking about it and recognizing that we all are trauma. Mike used the term trauma earlier, and we've all been through a trauma. And so I want to turn it to and you don't need to name anyone, but think back over the past 19 months. And when has someone said something to you? And if you're willing to share it, said something to you that really impacted you. And it could have been either in a positive or negative way, however you want to share. But there have been interactions you've all had in your lives and on these Zoom boxes and in, you know, when you've spoken publicly, you've all been out there with the media and things. So just that person, that individual, somebody said something to you and it really gave you pause. And it, again, positive or negative. So anyone who's ready, please feel free to jump right in.
I'll start. And you know, it actually came through, for me, through the leadership forum with Amy's group. And it was Dawn, actually, who, in an emotional moment, said something to the effect that this may be the greatest thing that we do in our lives. What we have done here collectively, all of us, every single person on this call has had an impact and raised their hand and stood forward when called upon to handle this crisis in some way. We all collectively played little parts that became the sum of the whole. And as we look back in history, and your grandkids and their grandkids talk about this, they'll talk about the role that you all on this call were in the right place at the right time, the right people standing up in the heat of a crisis, doing your little part. And your legacy solidified in the history of this county. That this will and may be the greatest things that we collectively do in our public service life. And that struck me as so incredibly powerful and really motivated me to try to be the best I can be every single day. And I've just been so lucky to be surrounded by incredible people, such dedicated people, everyone on this call who has come forward in this crisis without question, without reservation, and put their best foot forward, not knowing, again, if it was right or wrong, just doing the very best they could do. And I thought that was just so powerful.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Srija, Nancy?
I'm pretty sure Don made me laugh at least 4 or 5 times too. Things are really hard. A quick bit of humor. A couple things that were going through my thought process. Number one, there are several people, and I don't want to name them individually, who texted and said, can I help? I can help. Like, tell me what you need. And I think in the that openness to being asked reminded me, like how to be helpful to others who are looking to me. So that stands out. And then also just kind of the rah, yes, we can, whether it was Mike or Nancy or one of you on this call of when the first time we vaccinated 2,000 people at the event center in a single day, or Julie was welcoming our essential workers for a special, drive-through opportunity there, or we found a way to remove a barrier in a vulnerable community, whether it was North Fair Oaks or East Palo Alto or Daly City, that step by step, piece by piece, I mean, what we've been able to do together is so much bigger than anything any one of our entities could have done on our own. And when I look at 91% of our residents having gotten vaccinated and looking forward to these 5 to 11-year-olds that, can give an additional layer of protection. I did not think in January of 2020 that we could get to these kinds of milestones as quickly and as ably and as collaboratively as we have. So lots of great moments stand out.
Thank you, Srija. It's good for folks to hear too that those conversations and texts and messages really matter, that everybody needs those. Nancy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
So on a light note, I already said, Mike, those weekly calls were like an anchor. So it really didn't matter what you were saying. I just wanted to be listening. And I appreciate all that. With Srija, we've become really special comrades and friends. And I just really treasure our relationship. We've had some wacky, crazy situations to deal with between the two of us. And as far as something somebody said to me, it's not so much saying, but Srija's giggle is just like the best thing on the planet. And that like, okay, we're going to be okay when Srija all she can do is giggle. It's just great. I really appreciate it. And then on a much more serious note, if I'm honest, the pandemic was shocking and it's been tragic and it's been really challenging. But to have, in the middle of all that, to have the George Floyd incident happen was really probably one of the most painful, moments of my adult life. And I've been through some things. But as a nation, the pain of that experience is so intense, while we were also trying to hold up so many and so much with a pandemic that we were still trying to understand. But when I stand in and try and advocate for the needs of every child in our community, knowing that that experience happened as part of their lifetime is something I will always feel so deeply sad about. And if we cannot heal inside our own communities in this way, in this social justice space, then I feel we will have failed. That is the thing we have to do, is really just see the beauty in every human being. Something that drives me in my work is that I had 3 brothers. I have 3 brothers, and one of my brothers had really challenging times through school, and he ended up developing schizophrenia. And as a young person in college, I was trying to help my family manage that and all the systems and things that come around that. And you come to understand, especially when you're dealing with someone with a mental illness, that you still see their humanity, and that's still my brother, and I still love him deeply. So we have to be able to see beyond our biases, and we have to work together to deconstruct those biases and build a better community that links arms in real ways. So that's kind of where I'm coming from on coming out of this experience.
Nancy, I'm going to publicly ask you to help all of us actually do what you just said. Help us to overcome our biases. What you just shared, we need that. We need that honesty, that reflection, these hard conversations. You've encapsulated, we're never going back to what it was, the haves and the have-nots. We are better than this. And so help us. I'm asking you. I want you to help the business community, which is the area where I work. I know Mike and Srija. I mean, we need it. So guess who's going to be calling you next week for the next conversation? Yep. We're going to give you a little breather. We promise. We'll give you a little breather, but thank you. Yeah. Thank you for saying what we all need to hear.
And I'm not, I'm ready and willing to lean in and do the work, but there's so many others that can help us lead the way. I will do my part.
That was beautiful, Nancy, and extremely well said.
I'm just giving it a pause because just giving it a pause.
I didn't plan on that, so I apologize. That was
please. Yeah. I don't even want to hear that word apology.
Only gratitude.
Yeah, no. Thank you. So I'm going to ask, because we have about 10 minutes. And there's so many other questions that we could ask. And I'd love for you to share, because I think we need to hear this, is where do you go as leaders for your rejuvenation, for getting your energy? Like, what is it that you do or that helps you manage all of this? Because it is a lot, folks. So Srija, Mike, Nancy, where do you go to recharge? And how do you do it?
I can start, then I get to listen to you guys. I go into the ocean. You know, I'm a swimmer and I swim in pools typically, but during the pandemic, the pools closed. And I live in Half Moon Bay. I have some friends that started swimming off Roosevelt Beach in Half Moon Bay, and this group started forming, and they call themselves the Half Moon Bay Cold Water Crew. And get out in the ocean. I'm a swimmer, so it's not that big a deal. You just swim, it's still water. But the thing about the water is that it changes really fast, and you have to stay really present. And you might go out and it's sunny, and in 10 minutes you're swimming along and the fog comes in and you can't see, or the way the swells come in and the current hits you. It's become my complete meditation about how to navigate through life, is to relax your body, keep breathing, trust, and embrace the swells as they come instead of fighting against them. And because when I first went out, I was uncomfortable and I really was kind of fighting against it all. And then I got better at just kind of rolling with the currents and accepting the conditions around you. And you can get through the water a lot more effectively. And then there's just the beauty of our world, like the ocean, the water, the sky, the clouds, the perspective from out offshore there about the big planet around you. It's really amazing. I'm not going to do it during the winter. I think I'm almost done swimming for the season, but I'll go back and get back in the water in maybe April, May again.
Nancy, can I ask, how cold is the water?
So I'm called a skin swimmer. So I don't swim with a wetsuit because I feel very constricted by wetsuits. And the cold is part of the experience. You embrace that and learn to bring it into your strength, but it's, 50, 50, 50. I never go under 50. And it's usually under 60. So somewhere between 50 and 60, closer to 50.
I'm going to say, wow. We love you even more. There's everyone on this call who has just kind of like curled up and said, wow, wow, and wow.
It's kind of crazy, but everybody has their thing.
Thank you.
It gives me a different appreciation when Nancy gave me the analogy of where, it's like ocean swimming, Srija. Like she actually knows what that's like, 50-degree water temperature. Oh, wow. So I am not as athletic as Nancy, but manage a morning run that's in the stars, where sometimes when I time it right, I can see both the stars in the sky and the peak of the sun starting. And I could tell I was at nadirs when I wasn't finding the time to have that, 20, 30, 40 minutes of being outdoors and by myself with no one needing me but the skies. And then I will admit, even if Dr. Morrow needs to hear it, that really good ice cream with my husband soothes a lot of jabbing ouches of days that didn't go as well as I would like. And I just do feel so grateful for the family I have the good fortune of being a part of as a safe space. And I'm the mom of a 17-year-old, and he keeps me hopeful because he challenges me and he pushes, why would you do that, Mom? And can't we do better? I'm so hopeful for the young people who are showing us the way through this. It keeps it real, keeps it fun. And when we can together watch Steph Curry, maybe, every team has to win, has to lose a game. So last night wasn't our best, but just those moments of joy of like doing something that's fun.
Srija, can I ask you, first of all, I absolutely love your giggle. And I love that Nancy brought that up, because honestly, I'm just going to call you and I don't know, try to make you laugh, because it really it brightens us. What's your favorite flavor ice cream?
That kind of salted butterscotch caramel family, sometimes with the dark chocolate, pretty good.
I love it. Love it. And guess what you're going to be getting for the next holiday? Mike, what do you do?
I think it's a couple of things. I mean, for me, and this may sound crazy. I mean, well, I would say golf, but that just frustrates me more when I'm out playing the way I play. But really, for me, it's getting out of the office and getting more in touch with the incredible employees of this county and what they do, and seeing them every single day helping people in one way or another and making a difference in people. That inspires me. That absolutely inspires me, especially when we see these young, idealistic individuals who are committing themselves to public service. I just love that. So, I mean, I'm a very visual person. I've got to be out there seeing the vaccines happening and seeing how we interact with those who are coming to get the vaccine, or how we're testing people, or how we're out developing new roads for people. Whatever we do as a county, I love going out there, and that really energizes me. But then on a personal level, I mean, this has had a profound impact on the way I look at life, quite frankly. It seems like every sunset is a little bit more special, and every time you see fireworks, it's different, and it's taught me to not take life for granted. And I think that I have always been extremely busy in my life, and it has allowed me to really kind of reflect on how fragile life is and how things can change on a dime as we know it, and how appreciative I am of the family I have, the wife I have, the kids I have, and spending special moments with them. I mean, I got to tell you, everything is just a little bit more special now when you spend that alone time. When you go to that Giants playoff game, you understand that more and more, and maybe it's because I'm getting older, that nothing lasts forever, and that you need to have those special moments and enjoy them when you can. And it's certainly a lesson that's become much more profound to me going through this.
Nancy, Mike, Srija, thank you. Please know how heartfelt that thanks is on behalf of Amy Buckmaster, Felicia Vasquez, Maggie Fahey, Chamber San Mateo County, on behalf of my co-chairs, Julie Lynn from the Labor Council, Kevin Mullen, our Assembly Member Pro Tem, Carol Groom, our County Supervisor, all of the attendees today, our sponsors, thank you. We are now taking a break until 10:30, and then with us at 10:30, and I encourage you all to maybe not sign off, just go on sleep or take your video off, and please put yourself on mute. We will have Dr. Grace from Stanford, who will be talking about mental health and how critical it is for all our success. So we thank all of you. We are deeply grateful. Have a good few-minute break.
Thanks.
Roseanne, I just want to pipe in that I've learned so much from you as a female leader in this county. I just want to thank you. I'm just truly humbled to be learning from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thanks, Roseanne. You take care.
Thank you, Roseanne.
Everybody take care. I just love you all. Love you so much.
Thank you so much.